have time or travel or who knows what, but that's the part I don't like.
Yes. Makes it tricky for sure.
All right, everybody. It is 7:01. Oh, that was Stacy, not him. It's 7:01, so I'm going to call our meeting to order. The first item is the roll.
Davis.
Here?
Lampy.
Here.
Board.
Here.
Bartz. Blanky. Smith.
Here.
Schmid. Wetzel. Moldenhauer.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first item on our agenda is the minutes of the council meeting from September 5th. Anybody have any comments or questions on those minutes? Mr. Blanky?
I have one.
Sure.
There was a citizen who spoke, John Kalibi, and I don't think the minutes accurately reflect what his issue was. It says he spoke on city structure, but specifically the city administrator versus a mayoral structure. And I think we should reflect that in the minutes.
We could do that. Anybody else on this one? Mr. Moldenhauer just joined as well. Oh, you know what? It would help if I unmuted the room. There we go. Mr. Moldenhauer, we see you're present.
Yes.
Very good. All right. The next item on our agenda is comments and suggestions from citizens present. I see we have a few. Megan.
Linda Kaufeld of W8370 Long Road.
Yes, that's correct.
Good evening, everyone. I want to inform you of a recent meeting at Milford Hills Hunt Club titled Awake to Righteousness, a Call to Action. There were 5 speakers there, 170 people in attendance, all concerned as to how we can fight against having another drag queen event in Watertown. On a different note, I had a nice chat with the 16-year-old girl who the police removed from the park. Here are some of her comments. She said, "The drag queen started to read very disturbing books. One about 2 parents who were dads to their kids. The drag queens wore very inappropriate outfits, and their dancing was sickening to watch." One more thing. Were you aware that Delafield canceled their drag queen event using this ordinance number 644? This ordinance includes concerns with sex offenders, children, and public spaces. And on the back, they show that Delafield has a map of sex offender boundaries, which brings up the question, if the drag queens are reading books that may be classified as grooming to the children, dancing provocatively in front of the children, taking money from the children, shouldn't we as a city know the backgrounds of these drag queens? Who are these people? Men, dressed up and painted as women, being face to face with children. We know the drag queens are referred to as unity. It will never bring unification to Watertown. It's one thing for an individual to make a personal decision, a choice on their sexuality, which is totally their right, and it's their business. I don't believe there is a person here who is pressuring any of them to step outside of their personal choices. That's what we call a person's liberty and freedom, and we hold very tightly to that. But the line is drawn when the expectation merges into our values. There's a constant theme of accusations of us being intolerant, unloving, and even hateful. And because we refuse to move into their mindset, We're accused of these behaviors when actually these are our choices that likewise need to be respected. City Council, there's abundant evidence that the drag queen shows are not child-safe events. Please make a public statement that there will be no more further public-funded Watertown drag queen events. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bentley Owlenhill of Watertown.
Beautiful trouble. Here's how it goes. A guy sees a beautiful girl with a guy, her boyfriend or her husband, and he decides he wants to get that girl. So he agitates, causes a problem, and gets her boyfriend or husband to react badly so he can turn his girl on him so that he can achieve his agenda of taking that girl away from that guy. It's actually ugly trouble. But to him, it's beautiful trouble. The funny thing is there's a book called Beautiful Trouble, or there's a manual called Beautiful Trouble. This is a manual that groups like the Disunity Project, I call it Watertown, have access to left-wing radical extremist groups that have extremist agendas. This book actually teaches how to incrementally escalate and cause agitation in order to get down the road the real intention, the real agenda in place. We see that here in the park. We have opened the door to Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, men dressing up like women, dressing up like nuns, walking around mocking religion, quoting the words of Christ, mocking Catholics, go and sin some more. Men dressing up as women, putting on, pardon me, slang tits and derriere, and then getting near kids, wanting to perform in front of kids. It causes agitation. And now we've seen some of the adverse reactions to this. Nazis came in. Other bad things have happened. Warning signs. In fact, one of the inner circle of the Unity Project, a post said, great, the Nazis came in. We wouldn't have gotten the press. I have that post. So we call on the City Council to protect the good citizens of Watertown from being the target of manipulation like this. Beautiful trouble to them is ugly trouble to the good citizens of Watertown.
Thank you.
Sue Christian of 1405 Beacon Drive.
On July 29th, a group of so-called Nazis showed up. They were heavily armed with big guns, flags, and they were unidentifiable because they were wearing masks that looked like skull faces. The police politely directed them to where they could protest, which was closer to the people who were the LGBTQ people than the man that was reading the God's word. They were yelling loudly They were much louder than the small amplifier of the preacher who was reading God's word. 14 to 20 masked Nazis, so-called Nazis, were threatening to kill people and yelling, blood, blood, blood. Why weren't they arrested? Why weren't they a threat? Why was this okay?
Thank you. Yes.
We have the people
I hesitate. Mr. Moldenhauer, would you mind muting yourself and then just unmuting at voting or discussion? I didn't want to mute an alderman. Thank you. That's perfect. All right, Megan.
Stacy Estudillo of
Estudio from Watertown.
All right. Of 1002 East Main Street.
So I have a few questions. Let's talk about the white elephant in the room. We all know that an arrest was made against Marcus last week for a bomb scare, and I've got some questions. So if you can validate all the money to taxpayers for security last year with the SWAT team and the closing of the pool, and about $25,000 this year for security, and a bomb scare was called in, why was there an action from our police officers? Yeah, I mean, the complaint was on the news. I have some questions about that. I have some questions regarding taking away the elected mayor position and going to an appointed city administrator. And the letter that I saw was authored by David Schrader, who is also the vice president of the school board. That's concerning. This is starting to look a lot like Hitler's Germany over here. I have seen no accountability from anybody. Kaminsky said at the debriefing in August that there was no favoritism shown, yet there was a uniformed police officer down there with his child who was with the Unity Project. That's a conflict of interest. I need to start seeing some integrity out of you guys. Emily, you constantly talk about transparency. When are we going to see it? Nobody's talking to anybody. Nobody's returning phone calls. City attorney won't return anything. I mean, come on, guys. We the people see what's going on. There's clearly an agenda being pushed. We're not happy about it. It's been voiced to many of you. I know I'm in contact with my alderman constantly. He's sick of me. I'd like to see some accountability, some responsibility, and some questions answered. You always want to go into closed session so you can come up with your next cover-up or lie. We don't ever get the truth. We don't ever get anything. So can we work on this? Because what I'm seeing is that this whole event, instead of the citizens working with the elected officials, we have a barrier. And it's the divide and conquer method you guys are using, and it's not good. I can clearly see what's going on. There's a rift between us. Is that why you're trying to abolish all elected positions? And if you do go to an appointed city director, who will it be? None of the aldermen or you should be able to be it. Who appoints them? What's the term limits? How does this go? Some of us are educated and smart, and we demand some answers. What's going on isn't okay. And I've made it to my mission to spread the word to those that don't know how to get the information, so they can come and ask you the same questions. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to point out, this is our zoning administrator. I just don't want anyone to think the city attorney's
No,
sitting
he
here
usually
tonight.
sits there.
He does. You're
Yeah,
right. You're right.
I know the city
I
attorney,
could,
like, he usually
I could see
sits
Brian
there.
was like, I am not the city attorney. So,
No, he's
this is the
not.
zoning
That's where he
administrator.
usually sits.
You're
That's
right.
why I
Yeah,
pointed
no,
there.
you're right. I just wanted to clarify. Megan.
Russell Krieger, 300 South Church Street.
You'll have to pardon my tremor. I have essential tremor, and it's the end of the day, and I'm tired. So, I'm here on behalf of Adoration Abode. I've been a volunteer with them for years now. I want to make it clear, I'm a master carpenter. I've been working and building and maintaining these buildings and working with the people that we give care to all of that time. I heard a statement at the board meeting that I was at last week about Adoration Abode having buildings that are condemned, and we make people pay. We take in men, and we require those that can to get a job and work and pay a small amount of money, and they receive their food. They don't pay anything else in that building, but they get a bed and what they need, and we provide a great deal of service to them. We are not perfect, but that organization operates on nothing but donations. We are a nonprofit organization. There is nobody there that gets a penny. When I heard that proclaimed in that manner, I wanted that clarified. And I'm a master carpenter by trade. There is nothing that happened in those buildings that I wasn't involved there, and I was there for every single inspection. I would like to make sure that that fallacy that was spoken of was a lie, and I won't stand for it, not once. We work way too hard and serve too many people. As an example, Christmas time, we had people asking when we do the pantry in 4 hours on Thursday morning, and they asked for extra food because they had people coming. We served 600 people food that day in 4 hours, 125 vehicles. And we do it, and it's all volunteers. So I want to make sure that we don't get quantified inappropriately, and we're not asking for anything but truth. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have another opportunity at the end of our meeting. I just want to unmute just to make sure no one online. We do have another opportunity for public comments at the end of the meeting, but if anyone else remotely would like to comment, it looks like mainly city staff, but there's one caller as well. All right.
I'd like to speak if I may.
Yes. Do you mind, when you're done, fill out, go ahead and please comment, and then when you're done, just fill out the form so Meg, the clerk has it, please.
Got it. My name is Jackie Elm. I'm a resident of the city of Watertown. In regards to the July 29th Pride in the Park, the police arrested 3 children and one 19-year-old at this event. This is in violation of citizen journalists exercising their free speech rights as enumerated in the U.S. Constitution First Amendment. Police Chief Kaminsky reports the city had advance notice of Antifa coming to the park, but no documentation from the FBI source is available. Despite the notice, the city mayor, whoever got together, refused to cancel the venue. Antifa marched into the park in a group of 20 to 25 participants and used a very loud bullhorn and sounded off very loudly for 20 to 30 minutes to intimidate the drag queen participants. City police had high-power rifles proudly displayed on their chests with sidearms, yet no arrests were made of these adults who showed up in force. Next, minor children walked freely into the park, because it's a public park, and they were harassed and intimidated by the drag queen participants for documenting as citizen journalists. The drag queen bullies encircled some of the teenagers and threatened them, but the police arrested the minor children, because they were told to by the drag queen people, and all of those altercations, just the arrests of 3 minor children. The 19-year-old returned from the bottom of the park up to the public sidewalk and used a microphone and a small amplifier to recite Bible passages. That equipment was many decibels lower than the Antifa chanting. And after about 2 minutes, the police confiscated the microphone and arrested him for violating a noise ordinance. Can't figure that one out. Certainly this level was much less than the Antifa actors. No arrests were made of the drag queen dancers who enticed children to add dollar bills to their costumes. Violators of city ordinances chapter 410 to 39, A, B, and C, in relation to erotic dancing, were not arrested. Violators of state statutes 948.055 and 948.11 were not arrested. Meanwhile, the violators of city ordinances and state statutes were allowed to continue their flagrant disregard of the laws. Furthermore, the Common Council has the authority under its general police powers, I'm quoting, for the good order of the municipality. Who is allowing these venues in the park when the citizens are complaining? How much is this going to cost the citizens of Watertown? We now understand it's higher than $10,000, most probably in the area of $25,000. How much is this going to cost in litigation costs if there is a civil lawsuit brought forward? Did Pride in the Park ever pay the 20% of security and protection fees as required for a second-year venue? Fees based on the original estimate of the $10,000 or maybe the final count of $25,000? We need answers. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we do have another opportunity at the end of our meeting to comment. With that, let's move to reports. You have the library minutes from June 8th, historic preservation and downtown design from June 21st, library from July 13th, the Benson Family Town Square Commission from July 17th, Housing Authority from July 20th, historic preservation from July 26th and August 9th, licensing board from August 9th, committee of the whole from August 9th, the plan commission minutes from August 14th, finance from August 21st, finance from September 5th, Site plan from September 11th, and Public Works from September 12th. I did pass along the message to get minutes turned in. Can you tell? Any other comments or questions on the minutes?
Two.
Yes.
Sorry, the first is on the Plan Commission minutes, just a correction. 3A, it's not a proposed office in Kennett, it's a proposed office in Kennel.
Okay.
I know it's minor, but
No,
I
we
know
can
the
make-
person who wrote those. The other one is just a brief question on the library board minutes. I believe it's the ones from June 8th. I only printed out the one page. Just a question about the window. It says that there was a Lincoln school tour and the window was broken, but then it says the police were called to fill out a report. So I'm just confused. Was the window vandalized or was it an accident?
Mr. Wetzel? Are you,
There was a school group doing a tour of the library, and one of the students picked up a rock and threw it, not intentionally trying to hit the window, but the rock bounced as they can, hit the window and broke the window. So it was a childish mistake.
Yeah, it was just unclear because with the addition of the police being notified, I was wondering if it was then intentional, but if it was,
I suspect, was that for insurance purposes? Yes, that's what I would assume. So you can speak to that if there's anything to add, but that's normally what we have to do in order to file our insurance claims.
okay,
The father, I believe, paid for the damage.
That I don't know.
okay. Thank you.
Mr. Lampier?
I have two collections of things.
Okay.
So I think one of the things that's helpful as you're looking through, especially the library minutes, is there's basically at least three major things that the library still hasn't completed from the library building project. One is the sign outside. There's no large city-branded sign yet on the outside. The second one is the donor board inside the library. Basically, you'll notice that there's plaques throughout the library, but there's also supposed to be a large donor board that basically greets people as they enter the library. And a third one is a revamp of sort of the patio area where the flagpole sits out in front of the library. So those are three building projects that you're going to, I think, see in the minutes as those continue to pass through.
Anything else?
I think on, this is somebody else's commission as well, this is Dan's. For the task force, the Benson Family Town Square Task Force, I think there's three things of it that are interesting in there. One was discussion about closing Water Street. I think that's come up a couple of times, Library Board, RDA, this commission as well. I guess, is that something that the committee is actively advocating at this point?
They did ask, they did bring it to the safety committee, I believe it was, for discussion. But with the planned closure of the Main Street Bridge, probably some planned detours that are going to happen as a result of that. They're not going to do anything at this time, so.
Okay.
Anybody else?
I've got two
go
more.
ahead. Okay.
One was another note in there about aligning the opening of the bathrooms. And I guess I just wanted to make sure that the MOU that we're doing with the library right now has enough in there for that.
There's bathroom stuff in there, yep.
Okay. And then the last one was just a mention, I saw an abbreviation that was not spelled out there. It's DORA, so we're not thinking of the cute girl with the backpack. This one, I believe, refers to a downtown outdoor recreational area.
We can pass that along to spell those out. Who submitted those? I've already paged past it.
Would be Christine.
Christine, do you mind passing that along to her, just to spell out those acronyms, please? Ms. Davis?
And from the library minutes, is the digital display or digital wall covering part of the original plans? Or is that an additional thing? Are they using donated funds or for that?
John, do you know, John, you've been quite involved in that.
Can you point me to it?
Let's see. It's I guess we're on July 13th.
Okay, I'm with you.
And we're at number 7. And there's a proposal for, the cost is $11,488 for a digital wall covering. The board said they would like a rendering prior to approval.
That one I am not familiar with.
Mr. Wetzel, yeah, so I do know that the digital wall coverings are like what's in the talk read play area, right? Those are digital wall coverings. And I as well do not know if that was the original project cost. However, I'm trusting one of my teammates down here will jot that one down for us and ask Peg to follow up with Alderperson Davis. If the digital wall coverings were in the initial project budget, and if not, were they funded through donation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, as I implied, it's kind of those 3 projects that I mentioned I really want to see finished.
Yeah. Anybody else on minutes? I believe
I have one if I can.
Yes, Stacy. This is Stacy Winkleman.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yep. I've got to make it bigger. So the Public Works minutes from September 12th, item number 4C.
Okay.
There's money in the 2023 budget, not 2024 budget.
For Chadwick Drive streetlights?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That's an important change. That one's been a long time coming. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yep.
Yes.
It should also be noted that I was present at this meeting for 4C. Does not say that I was present, but for,
And get that added? Yes, Public Works during item 4C.
yes.
Anybody else on minutes? Mr. Moldenhauer, did you have anything?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. Let's move then to communications and recommendations. In your packet is a memo from our zoning administrator, Brian Zerbis. This one pertains to PUDs, planned unit developments. We have had some questions just as different projects are coming, whether it's the project on the west side with Gray Wolf or the project on the south side with the Health Foundation. There's been some questions around planned unit developments and how we use those. Brian can answer any specific questions you have. Otherwise, we just wanted to make sure you all had a little historical reference around how we use those in the community and what they afford and restrict. Any comments for Brian or questions for Brian? Mr. Schmidt?
Just some concerns I had from questions about the one on the west side out past Farm and Fleet Highway. The scuttle I was told is it's a casino, and I didn't think that was right, but I want it clarified officially from Brian that that's not actually what's going there.
I'll answer that because I don't know that Brian can. I'm asked that question probably weekly. I speak with this developer, so does Mason. We've never discussed a casino. So I can say at this point in time, I have never discussed a casino. I don't know how it started, but yeah, you're not the first person to ask. Okay. So to my awareness at this point in time, I've never discussed a casino with Gray Wolf.
The intent is a subdivision of some kind of housing?
The intent there, we actually have our next meeting coming up with them in just a couple of weeks. The intent is near the south end of the property. The schematic, the last time I saw it, so I'll see a new one in a couple of weeks, was hotel, gas station, fast casual dining, some commercial and retail, and then as you go to the north, housing a CBRF, which is a community-based residential facility. So think of like a version of Marquardt, but not a massive campus, I don't believe. And then just working into housing as you go to the north. Yeah.
So I do have a question.
Yes, Mr. Board.
So Brian, this says plan unit developments, are these strictly residential, or does it give flexibility to the developer to do mixed use?
You've got to get pretty close to that one. Yeah. Oh, that actually, is that on green? Yeah, it does seem dead.
That's why you were given batteries.
Yeah. Thank you, Megan.
Yes, it does apply to commercial as well.
So what, It says, in exchange for such flexibility, the plan unit development provides a higher level of site design, architectural control, and other aspects of aesthetic and functional performance that normally required for other developments. Can you explain that to me?
Basically, what it allows you to do is say a setback, you want to reduce a setback or a.
I'm talking specifically about the higher level of site design, architectural control, aesthetics, functional performance.
That's so you get a higher quality development in exchange for those relaxations of the ordinances.
So who defines that
The Plan Commission.
as we go through the process?
Yes.
The Plan Commission and then ultimately the Common Council, because PUDs are ordinances,
Right. Compared to what?
the zoning standard.
There's existing levels they have to meet, and in exchange for the relaxing of some of the standards, the Plan Commission can require maybe higher quality finishes, things like that.
So you identified 40 in your letter.
Yes.
You didn't identify them. You said there have been 40.
Correct.
Could you send us a list of those, some of those?
Sure.
You want the whole list or examples?
This is fine.
Why don't we do a variety of examples, some
Yeah.
housing, some commercial? The
It'd
one
be
that
nice
always,
to compare what actually happened to whether or not it complies with that letter
yeah.
in the go forward,
Okay.
okay?
Other thoughts, comments, questions? Ms. Davis?
Steve, I remember you speaking on behalf of the Historic Commission in regards to the proposed plan unit development for the apartment, where you all had a say into design features. And that, I think, is because it was a plan unit development, and it was, as a part of that, it was to their benefit, the developers, to listen to you and to implement that so that they could get their plan unit development approved. So that input from community members or through those types of boards helps to improve the design or make it more what the community wants. I think
Yeah.
that's the intent.
But technically, we didn't have that authority because the building was not going to be part of the historic district since it wasn't directly on Main Street.
But they gave, it
And
was a
the
courtesy.
The Planning Commission's notes, as I recall from the night we presented that, was history doesn't mean anything, was what one of the members said. Fortunately, the design that came forward did make the changes that were suggested. So that's why I was asking. I mean, I'm a trained architect. I hate it when we talk about aesthetics, because what's beautiful to you isn't beautiful to me. So it's a very touchy subject
Yeah,
to me.
the ones that I think of are landscaping. So we have a really detailed landscaping plan. And an example could be, the economy of scale, a developer needs a little bit more square footage to make it cash flow. And our landscape standard would prohibit that little bit more square footage. And so we say, okay, you don't have to put in, these 5 tree types. You can do this other tree type that's listed in our urban canopy listing, because that benefits that extra square footage you need. So I know of the ones that I am thinking of. It's been landscaping. Some have been we have some areas where you can't use a certain metal. And I know we've said, well, there's certain, to your point, aesthetic, but, there's certain corrugated metals that really are a nicer looking siding than perhaps the other metal types that our zoning code prohibits. But we can definitely get you a handful of different examples to see how we've used it.
Yeah, the plan unit developments I've been involved in, when you reduce the size of the lot, then typically the developer was asked to provide park space, because what you're really taking away is the play space of the homeowner. So you go from a 1 acre lot to a third of an acre lot, you still build what we like to call McMansions, and there's no play space on the property. So typically, in the past, what we required was park space.
Yeah.
And that was part of the landscaping issue. So that's
And
why I'm
we
asking.
require that as well already, PUD or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, good questions.
I'm happy.
Yeah. Others? All right. Then let's move to new business. You all have some committee appointments for consideration. Is there a motion on these?
I'll move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Board, second by Mr. Blanky. Comments or questions on these? Yes.
One of the concerns I have with one of these is the length of the term for ending in January 2027.
They're 5-year terms.
It's a 5-year term. With these 2 appointments, does this put the RDA back at full strength?
At this point, yes.
Okay.
I believe we have one other person who will be ending, I think within a few weeks or a month or so. So we will have one more.
We have a lot of turnover on this one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Fed, those people have been on since the beginning. So that was like 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
That group has largely been there.
A lot of work.
Yep.
These two in particular have done a lot of work.
Yes, they have.
Any other comments or questions on these? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, very good. Next, let's go to the discussion item that we have under new business. This is the Town of Emmett Boundary Agreement. Brian's gonna run the show a little bit here, but if you're on Plan Commission, some of this information will be repeat for you. I don't want to recant everything that's in the history narrative that Brian provided, but just for those in the room that don't have the packet in front of them, this agreement was one that began in the early 2000s. And what this calls for is this fourth and final phase of annexation and implementation from that agreement. We've taken this to the Plan Commission. They've asked for just additional information as we've brought it back and forth to them, and we felt like having met with them a few times now would be a good time to come to you all and bring you all up to speed. I don't know that many of us, there might be a couple, that have some awareness of this agreement from that point in time, but we wanted just to bring it to your attention and answer any initial questions that you might have. So, Brian.
Okay, thank you. These slides are just basically a quick summary of the more detailed packet that you have in front of you. A little history. The first, as Emily said, first agreement was adopted in 2000. It was called the Intramural Cooperative Agreement, and that lasted until 2013. That was then superseded by the restated intermunicipal agreement that lasted a little over a year to September of 2014. And then that brought us to the current agreement with the City of Watertown, Town of Emmett Cooperative Boundary Agreement, which was adopted in 2014 and expires on December 31st of 2032. Some key provisions of the boundary agreement are a town growth area where the town has exclusive land use regulations, a city growth area where the city has oversight on land use, and the 4 mandatory boundary adjustments or annexations. And the State Highway 16 residential area is the last of these 4 boundary adjustments to be completed. And this map is, the green area is the area of the State Highway 16 residential area that would be annexed. The purple line is the existing city boundary. And the schedule for this, the agreement says that this must be completed on or before September 29th, 2024. In order to complete that, we put together a preliminary schedule here of things that have to happen. We did meet with the town in August, and one of the items that came out of that was to take this information to the Plan Commission and the Common Council. And so that's one of the things we're doing today, and the town, on the other hand, will be taking it to the town board. And we will be getting back together with them in September, end of September here, to discuss any comments and the process forward. There are some costs associated with this. The plat map with a legal description of the boundary area to be annexed will have to be prepared by a surveyor. That will be a cost borne by the city. The agreement also requires that sewer and water connections be completed with 1 year of annexation, and those costs are borne by the property owner, and there are more detailed information about that in your packet. And it takes us to next steps and questions. The city and town, again, are going to meet at the end of the month. One of the items we're going to work on is a letter that will be included in the Town of Emmett tax bills for the residents affected that will notify them of this annexation process and set a date for a meeting, informational meeting for them. So there's a few questions that we need input from all of you on is how do you want to proceed with this? What additional information or steps do you feel you needed? And how would you like to proceed with the utility improvements, the sewer and water extensions, and the costs associated with that?
And so we don't need like direct answers to these questions. They're more like ones we want you to consider and think about. We will have, meeting agenda items where we will actually make these determinations, but we just kind of want to get a feel for where people are at. I did start this process maybe early to midsummer with the town chair, and then we've met with the town of Emmett twice, and have really tried to approach it as us working together to inform and educate. We don't really want to have one entity over the other, speaking. We're trying to do as best we can together. So the letter we're going to work on together. The meeting we'll probably have a meeting in January, February with those impacted. Try to do that together, things like that. So, sir.
I did have one question, because obviously I've been digesting this for a week now. And I was hoping the city attorney would be here, because this is going to go right on his plate, but it's, what happens if we don't?
We actually asked that question. We've asked that question before he was gone, so go ahead.
Yeah, the answer to that is you'd have to amend the agreement with the town and basically remove this annexation from that agreement.
And what if they're not open to that?
I would refer to the attorney on that.
I think that the obvious answer, right? Then we are in an agreement. There's likely, I don't have it in front of me, there's likely some default language or cancellation language. I mean, there's, I hope, prescribed next steps if we can't come to agreement terms. Others, Ms. Davis.
Thank you. That was one of my questions, but I'll even go more basic. Why? What was the original reason for doing this?
So and if anyone in the room wants to chime in, please do. We asked Phyllis, who is the town's zoning administrator. Do you mind flipping back a couple of slides? One more. No. Keep going. Or is that the beginning? Oh, here, this one. So we asked Phyllis, who was there at the genesis of this whole topic, and she said at the time, there was a lot of growth out in the town. Growth being land divisions, just changes people wanted to make to their properties. And because of the way that you essentially calculate the radius at which the city has purview in those decisions, it really encompassed a lot of the town. And so the town was coming to the city often for this, what this agreement gave them, which was the exclusivity of their town land use regulations. They were coming to us a lot, and those, from what I can tell, reading between the lines, those weren't going well. Landowners weren't getting what they needed, what they wanted. The city obviously had a different approach. And so in exchange for what you see on this page, the town got a lot more autonomy out of this deal. The area that we had purview in was limited in exchange for setting a boundary that essentially put Highway 16 as what would be the city, and then a smaller town or city growth area where we would have insight. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that was pretty
Okay.
spot on.
Do you have any insight? Yeah.
There was a lot of concern about what was feared by the township of Emmett, that the city would exercise its extraterritorial annexation authority in areas where the town was particularly interested in overseeing development themselves. And so in exchange for what the city was interested in, which was the city growth area, including everything inside or south of the bypass, the city basically gave up its extraterritorial annexation authority in the town growth area. Now, we still technically have that authority to go into the town growth area, but there was a carefully negotiated tax consequence adverse to the city if we did that, and it was sufficient for the township to believe that their areas of concern were protected. But the city growth area is outside and beyond the bypass, so many of these land divisions and other issues within the township that are quite commonly coming to the Plan Commission. That's because the city retained oversight in that area for its protection of its own growth potential. And so the Plan Commission oversees those different development issues within the extended city growth area. But the notion that the township might now be not as favorable to the annexation that had been specifically negotiated of these lands south and southwest of the bypass and not be cooperative in the fulfillment of these carefully negotiated provisions, I think it's just not realistic. I think they're going to go through with what they had committed from the outset. And at the time that this passed, it not only passed unanimously by our city council, but it was unanimously approved by the Township of Emmett Board. And it has operated very well. And this particular portion that is coming into play in 2023 and 2024 is something that may appear to be disproportionately favorable to the city, and this certainly is, and it was something that we carefully negotiated to put into the agreement. But what the township received was basically complete self-rule over this town growth area, which is the hugest part of Emmett out to that 2-mile limit. And the only continuing interest the city had outside of these specific annexation issues was to ensure that areas where it was reasonable that over the course of time the city would expand was not made more difficult by development approved by the township, not taking into account the city's future growth interests. And so it was a very, very balanced agreement that was unanimous on both parties, or by both parties, from the very outset. So I would anticipate this would go extremely well, and that the city would be able to conclude this final annexation portion, and the township would continue to enjoy relatively uninhibited oversight over areas that the state statutes give substantial authority and interest to the city as it relates to annexation purposes. And basically that town growth area is just the area east of North 2nd Street and 2nd Street Road. The areas where the city has a growth area is the areas north of the bypass and west of the North 2nd Street road area. And so for those people that have served on the Plan Commission, those developments that have been coming before the commission looking for things like land divisions and things like that, that's only because that is specifically delegated within the city growth area under the purview of the city of Watertown. And I don't know of a single instance where we have not been fair or there has been a single instance of dissatisfaction by the township in the way that we have exercised our negotiated authority within that city growth area.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Others?
So the slide said there's been 3 changes already. Do I assume that's why over the last 20 years or so, this is the 3rd agreement?
I think this is the
agreement?
4th.
the fourth agreement? Is that
It's
a new
believe it's
agreement
third.
each time one of the annexations actually occur?
That I don't know.
No, those were all in the original agreement. They just reworded some of the other provisions in there to make them more clear as what the
What were the
narrative said.
areas? They're small.
There's an area, a couple of houses over by Farm and Fleet, I think on.
Welsh?
Welsh, yes. And then there were two railroad corridors that kind of came into the city and they annexed those.
So this is by far the
This is
the biggest, yeah. Other comments, questions? Mr. Blanky?
One last thing that came up in Plan Commission that I know is concern of yours and mine as well is there is a significant cost to the property owners for hookups to sewer and water. It's a staggering amount of money. And that's my concern when this was entered into. I'm sure that the price tag was not nearly what it is now, but I think the number off the top of my head was 50,000 roughly per.
Yeah, so that's the top. I mean, what we're doing in these estimates is estimating. And when we do, we estimate higher because we don't want it to be beyond that. But yes, it's still double digits.
So the question that we're going to have to wrestle with is how are we funding that? Do we dump that on the property owner? Does the city front the money and then we put a special assessment on a property, which when that property sells, then that money is due? How do we do this so that it's fair to the property owners, but it also satisfies the agreement? It's not an easy question to answer.
And it's one that's a bit more pressing. It's like we're putting in the budget, the surveying fees, like things that we need to do to keep the agreement moving along. But I think the full-on estimate's like 800, again, a high estimate, but I think it's like 800,000 or so, is that right?
Yeah, it's a little excess, 800,000.
So to put that in some perspective, I mean, that gets borrowed in 2024 if they have to connect within a year. And we don't have $800,000 sitting in Fund 5. I'm being tasked with cutting $1 million out of Fund 5 before you all get it next week. So I don't know where that would, your point's a valid one. It's a hard one either way, though. So that's why we wanted to kind of pose some of these general thoughts to you all so you could kind of chew on them and think about, what approach we want to take. I think we have getting before the Public Works Commission as kind of our next stop for this, so that we have a discussion option where we would discuss utilities and special assessments and things like that.
But the backup question to that question is, this thing's been in place since 2000. I hate to ask this question, but I assume what I'm hearing is that the residents that are listed for this fourth phase are not aware of the agreement.
So we asked the town, generally speaking, how aware do you think people are? And I think the response was they believe a majority are probably not overly aware that this is there. I think they described a few that perhaps went to the county for a septic permit or
Yeah, they were told by the county when their septic was failing that they couldn't get it repaired or replaced because they were going to be hooked up to city sewer. And so they were made aware at that time if they weren't already.
So if you look at, I think, don't hold me to these numbers, I think it's like 28-ish parcels. Not many. Some of those are owned by the same person. So I think it's maybe like 16-ish individual people, something in that range. And then if you take that number and a few know, that's kind of where I'm gauging the majority probably don't have the awareness of the annexation. And I feel pretty strongly that they probably wouldn't know the cost. I don't know that unless you sit on a body like this, you have awareness of the scope and cost of utilities. Mr. Schmidt?
So to tag into that, so we have a significant number of property owners who may or may not have any idea what's going on. And we're going to potentially, they could be being told that you now have a year to comply with something that is astronomically expensive, potentially. Again, not knowing specific numbers because we don't know what, and even if the money does magically appear out of thin air, are the contractors even available to complete that amount of work in the time frame we're providing? Realistically, I don't even see we have the contractors to do the work or can guarantee the materials can be in place.
So right now, to answer your first question, that is what the agreement states, yes,
Right.
is the short answer. The agreement also doesn't specify who hires the contractor? So the way the agreement has been interpreted to us is it would be on the property owners to hire a contractor. I think many of us don't see that as an overly viable option, but there's a
that's-
lot that, you know, the practical implementation has some questions.
I have lots of questions that were to this stage, and it sounds like they've dropped the ball almost completely on notifying the residents of Emmett.
I don't want to bash the town because the town and I are working very well together, and that's not always the case. You know, there's a new town chair, and you know, Phyllis was one of the originators, and she said it even caught her by surprise. So just that the time was here already. So I think we're all doing the best with what was brought to us to start to put the pieces together. And I think everyone at the table right now wants to try to do what's best for the city. I mean, that's what we're charged with doing as city elected officials. And also keeping in mind what that impact is to real people. I mean, that's a fine balance.
And if we're discussing what's best for the city, these would then effectively become our residents and our charge.
You're right.
And our responsibility.
Yeah.
And putting that kind of a burden on them, unbeknownst to them, for whatever the reason, potentially, is a big ask. Especially going into '24, where there's a huge unknown area of what inflation is going to be, what interest is going to be, and if even there's going to be contracts available, even if it's on them to come up with their own individual contractors,
Right.
I don't see them being enough contractors in an area that can pull permits, that can get the work, can get the material, and get it done to standard in a realistic period of time, because life happens, weather happens, and I have lots of concerns about this timeline.
I understand why the limitation was put in. You know, if factually speaking, if we're all in the neighborhood and Mr. Wetzel's goes out before that one, like if we don't set a timeline and Mr. Wetzel's goes out, then he pays for the main to run around this entire U so that he can get water. So I understand why they thought we should have a timeline, because otherwise whoever breaks first is who's getting the short straw. The point being, this is the first time we're bringing it to you all. We expect this level of reaction and concern. I think it's justified. And we just wanted to kind of set the stage, hear your feedback, hear your concerns, hear what data or information would be helpful. We've gotten some requests from other alders saying, hey, it would help me to know this or that. And then we'll take the next step at bringing this to Public Works for them to kind of decide on some of the questions Brian is posing to us tonight.
I have lots of concerns in that, so.
Yeah, I understand. Who else? What else? Any comments, questions? Okay, so I would just ask that if you have thoughts on the things on the screen, please reach out to Brian. There's so many ways this can go, and as I said, really the budget is going to be kind of the timeline for this thing. I mean, if the decision is that we're going to take on the cost, well, then the only thing that's even close to $800,000 is the street program. I'm not trying to be flippant about it. There's just nothing else of that magnitude. So it would have to really be where it would come from. So if you have thoughts or questions as we go along, please just reach out to us and just keep an eye on Public Works. That's where you'll see this land next. And in the meantime, we'll have another meeting with the town to let them know how it goes. So the town is also meeting with the town board. That was kind of what we decided. We'd go to our governing bodies and then come back and debrief a bit. All right, very good. Thank you, guys. All right, the next item is the accounts payable.
Mayor McFarland, I would so move.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Moldenhauer. Second by Mr. Wetzel. He knows his responsibilities. Any questions on the accounts, you guys? Megan?
Moldenhauer,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Lampy, Board, Bartz, Blanky,
Aye.
Smith, Schmidt, Wetzel.
Aye.
Motion passed 9-0.
Thank you. Let's go to miscellaneous business. First is the payroll summary from August 23rd to September 5th, and then the credit card purchases over $10,000. Comments or questions on either of those reports? Ms. Davis?
Just a comment about overtime for the, it looks like police, year-to-date overtime costs have quite exceeded over their budget. Is that a lack of people, or that that people are working longer hours because you're short-staffed, or?
We've had overtime in dispatch. We've been short-staffed all year in dispatch. We've had overtime in patrol because we've been short-staffed in patrol. We also had some major events happen, plane crash, a few other things that have required 24-hour security. For some of that was for the whole week. So there's just been a lot of bigger overtime events happening.
Sure.
Chief, can you clarify on the PD? I know dispatch, we have literally vacancies. On the PD, it's more short staff because of like leaves, like FMLA or?
Well, we are short just because people have been in the academy, so they're not out on patrol. And we've have 3 that have been out on FMLA, 2 that are still currently on FMLA, extended leaves.
So
as
not
well.
a vacant position?
Correct.
Yeah. Different than like the fire department. Anybody else on these 2? All right, then let's move to licenses. The first item is the memo to council that Megan provided for you all that speaks to the other licenses in our packet. So the first for action is an application for a Class B license for Osaka for Hermine Hartman is the agent located at 100 East Madison Street. This is formerly the license held by Rock River Pizza. Mr. Smith.
The approval of this Class B malt liquor license.
Motion by Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Blanky. And then on your desks is a document requesting, yes, Mr. Smith. No, go ahead.
Okay, the actual initial recommendation from the licensing board was for this license to apply to the first floor of the restaurant. Since then, there's been a request that for certain periods during the year, there's going to be outside dining, and on that patio area that they would like to expand the availability of serving to that area. And so I would make a motion to amend and include the patio area of this property for the license
Thank you.
involved.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Blanky. Everyone understand the change? Okay. So let's vote first on that amendment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so now we are at an amended application for the Class B for Osaka. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. All right, our next action item is a secondhand article license. This is for Eco ATM at Walmart. Sean Flaherty is the applicant. Is there a motion on this one?
Move for adoption of this proposed license.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Smith. Second by Mr. Blinky. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? And then our next is an agent change for Aldi from Megan Turner, and we did have an error here. We have Jennifer Johnson, it should be Michelle Johnson. The application is correct, it does say Michelle. This was just an error for us. So an agent change from Megan Turner to Michelle Johnson for Aldi's. Is there a motion? Yeah,
I'd move for the approval of this change of agent.
thank you. Motion by Mr. Smith,
Second?
second by Mr. Blanky. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? And then our last is an application for an operator's license for Nicholas Milton. Yes,
I move to deny the application for operator's license.
motion by
for-
Mr. Lampy, second by Mr. Bartz. Anybody else on this one? All in favor of the denial, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, very good. Let's go to ordinances. The first is ordinance 23-21. This is to amend Chapter 550 of our official zoning map for the city to rezone the parcels listed from general business zoning district and multifamily MR8 zoning district to a central business district zoning classification. This is here from the Plan Commission on its second reading. Ms. Davis?
Ordinance 23-21.
Motion by Ms. Davis, second by Mr. Lampy. Any discussion? Megan?
Davis. Lampy. Ford.
Aye.
Bartz. Blanky.
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Schmid. Wetzel.
Aye.
Moldenhauer.
Aye.
Motion passed 9-0.
Thank you. Next is ordinance 23-22. This is also to amend Chapter 550 of our zoning code through the removal and addition of language to Sections 550-131.1A, Paren 2, 550-131.1A, Paren 3 and A, 550-132, the table, 550-132A, Paren 1. This is here from me and the Plan Commission on the second reading.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Board. Second by Mr. Blanky. Any discussion on this one? Megan?
Ford.
Aye.
Bartz.
Aye.
Blanky. Smith.
Aye.
Schmid. Wetzel. Moldenhauer.
Aye.
Davis. Lampy. Motion passed 9-0.
Thank you. All right, let's go to resolutions. You all have Exhibit 9533. This is a resolution to approve the collective bargaining agreement with the Labor Association of Wisconsin. This is for our police officers. This is here from me and the Finance Committee. Mr. Lampy.
I move to approve.
Motion by Lampy, second by Mr. Barth.
I would second.
Oh, and give it to Mr. Moldenhauer. Comments, questions, discussion? Yes.
Changes from last year?
Ooh, Chief, you want to take a stab at Cliff Notes?
Cliff Note versions, of course, pay increase, a very small increase in uniform allowance. The physical agility test that the officers we require them to take, they can get some flex time off for passing that. So they used to get 4.5 hours of flex time off, which is just time for time. It's not overtime at all. Now they can have a full day off for passing our physical agility standard.
The 12-month thing for flex?
Yeah, there's housekeeping more for payout on flex and comp time. We had a comp time payout at the end of the year. We also have a flex time payout now, which makes it easier for bookkeeping at the end of the year so that there isn't all this kind of carryover into the next year. And then I think the last, an insurance payout.
Yeah.
Language on insurance payout if you retire or leave versus having it paid towards health insurance, you can get an actual payout towards your sick leave as well.
There's a limit on that, but
Yes, sorry.
Also a clarification on bilingual
yes.
pay or standards?
That's, we have 3 officers at this point that are bilingual, and there is a $500 stipend that they can get each year for being bilingual. And then if anybody else would like to work towards that, we can test them, and if they are found to be bilingual through a testing process, they could get that as well. But we have 3 officers who are used extensively.
The union members voted on this?
Yes. Yes, they voted last week, and it was a yes.
Anybody else? Any comments, questions? Megan?
Lampy.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Bartz.
Aye.
Blanky.
Aye.
Smith. Schmid. Wetzel. Moldenhauer.
Aye.
Davis. Motion passed 9-0.
Very good. Thank you, guys. Next is Exhibit 9534. This is a resolution to approve a state municipal financial agreement revision number 1 for the reconstruction of the Cole Street Bridge. This is here from me. I know it's exciting. Don't all jump up at once. Mr. Bartz.
Approve Exhibit 9534.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Bartz, second by Mr. Board. Can I answer any questions, or Jane Ellen is on as well? Yes, Mr. Lampy.
I just want to see the typo on that last instance of 2 million. The fourth whereas, there's a 0 missing.
Sure, we can make that adjustment. Thank you. Other comments or questions?
Is the project scheduled for 2024 officially now? That's what the document says.
Well, we ask that question to the DOT on a weekly basis, and they don't ever answer it. So the project will be let, that's our version of bid, in November. So we have met all of our milestones. I'm unaware of a single item that we need to be producing that we haven't produced. This SMFA adjustment, Stephen and I negotiated for easily 3 weeks because they wanted us to sign, so they aren't passing the earmark to us. They're keeping the earmark funds. And they wanted us to sign the contracts for this work without having assurance that they were going to pay the bills. And I was uncomfortable with that. I wanted assurance of that. So we've worked with them to set up a process to do so. So if I'm asked, I say we are marching towards, we are doing the work we need to do. That'll begin later this month. And we are marching towards that work being done in the spring by March and the bridge starting in April. I have no reason to believe otherwise, but I also can't get the DOT to say that. So. Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
I get lots of questions regards to the Katy Street Bridge closing timeline and repair relating to the Main Street Bridge closing and approval start time.
Sure.
And how does that impact truck routes through downtown only leaving essentially open Milwaukee?
So the Main Street Bridge will stay open
But
during
you can't
the
do trucks on it now.
during the work we need to do. And the detour route that we would have produced, and Jane Ellen, I'm going to come to you in just a second. The detour route that's posted, the one that seems so ridiculously long, is because it has to be posted for a truck route.
That's the
Yeah.
question I'm getting is
Yeah.
the truck route and
So
having
you
two
and I
bridges
are
down.
going to just, turn on 3rd Street and, get to Main, or get to church rather than going up Katy.
Right.
But we have to post for a truck route. And so that's why that one is the way it is.
Okay, so
But our intention with this project is we may have to do let me be careful. The work that we have to do from late this month until early spring, the work that would coincide with, timing-wise, with the Katy Street Bridge, our work that we have to do, we do not have a belief that we will have a full closure of the bridge. We should be able to maintain a driving lane and then use a parking lane for the other driving lane. So we should have Main Street Bridge passable while Katy Street Bridge is being worked on.
Okay. Yeah, the trucking route's more of the concern than
Yeah.
passenger cars because they have the flexibility of using Main Street right
Yep.
now. So.
Yeah, so the detour route is, Jane Ellen, is there anything you want to add or that I'm saying incorrectly?
No, we are required to make sure that our detour routes are marked for truck traffic. Local traffic will find ways to sneak around and through other ways, but we have to do our detour for trucks.
I do want to add the other change to this one is in the indemnification and insurance requirements. Those were two things that DOT was requesting of us that Stephen negotiated. So those are the changes from the agreement that you guys have already approved in the past.
How long will Katy Street be closed?
They're saying, I believe, Jane Ellen, I believe they're saying up to 8 weeks.
Yes, at the pre-construction, the contractor anticipates being done in 5 weeks. We have been advertising it as 8 because we don't know if there'll be any weather delays. So count on 2 months, and if it can be beat by that, the contractor will do his best to beat the 8-week mark.
So it starts tomorrow, as a reminder.
Yeah.
I think at 6 a.m., so even if you're an early driver. Okay, anyone else on the SMFA for Main Street Bridge? Yes.
I think it would be very helpful to just mention what an extraordinarily small part of the total cost the city of Watertown's responsible for, because I think a lot of citizens see a number of the public works projects going forward, and I think there may be an assumption that it's all coming out of local tax revenues and so forth. In this particular instance, if I'm reading these numbers correctly, it's a little bit less than 3% of the total cost of the project is being funded by our local community. The vast majority of this huge project, which is $8.7 million, is going to be funded by federal and state funds. And so as the local citizens see this project going forward, and especially when the project is completed and we have a beautiful new Main Street Bridge, they can know that that was the result of a lot of work on the part of a lot of people, but that in terms of their own funding through local taxes, it is a very, very small percentage.
Any other comments, questions? Megan?
Bartz?
Aye.
Blanky?
Aye.
Smith? Schmid? Wetzel? Moldenhauer?
Aye.
Davis? Lampy? Ford? Motion passed 9-0.
Thank you. All right, we have another opportunity from comments from citizens present. If anyone would like to comment.
I just wanted to add a real brief comment regarding our Watertown Public Library that, I don't know if many of you know this, but there were 5 of us that attended the library meeting a week ago or so, presenting our concern that there are 72 or 74 transgender books in our Watertown Public Library promoting transgenderism. And there was one that enlightening about in the opposite position. We now have 2. So we have, it's either 72 pro-transgender books promoting this lifestyle compared to 2. And I guess we were attending the library just because we're concerned about that that's a very lopsided amount of books for one category as compared to the other one. So I just am giving you that information.
Thank you. And yep.
So I have a few things. Why isn't there some kind of mechanic written in that citizens can, for things like this, can be passed by a vote from our aldermen, like we sign a petition or we do something of that sort? Because I think that the citizens, a small percentage of this town is getting their way, and there's most of us that are paying for it don't have a voice, and there needs to be some kind of mechanism that our voice can be heard as a whole. I also have another question. I'm wondering, I've been calling Chief Kaminsky and the city attorney off and on since August 2nd. Is there a gag order that you guys have put on them not to return phone calls? I would like that answered. I would also like to know, with some of this money that we spent for security, our roads, we can't drive a mile any direction on any road in this town without some kind, you guys owe my vehicle suspension and apology. We need to work on that. I found it curious that you said we don't have $800,000 just laying around. No, but we got 30. Like, come on. And why can't some of that tax money that's going towards security for events like this, why aren't we redoing the women's bathroom at Riverside Park? When is that set to be done? Or is that just to further the agenda maybe? We all share a bathroom? I want to reiterate, I hope you guys remember everything I spoke on. I'm going to make an inquiry or whatever regarding favoritism that day at the park. I really wonder why you, Emily, and the city attorney told Kaminsky no for canceling the events for safety concerns. That you were spending all this money and you guys are arresting the protesters, but a bomb scare was called in and there was inaction. I cannot believe the Unity people are not upset by this. Inaction by our police. Per the complaint that was called in before noon. And you guys could trace it back and you arrested the young man and let him go on something else. And then you went and arrested him the day of his pretrial here. 2 months later. 2 months later, after you had a detective and one of the other officers around in Waukesha and Sussex. Like, the community's aware of what's going on, you guys. The cover-up has to stop. The transparency you preach about needs to start coming through.
Stacy, if I have never received a request from you to connect, and I'd be happy to connect with you. So shoot me.
I don't think I would get anywhere.
Shoot me an email. I'd be happy to sit down with you and answer some of the questions that you have.
Emily, I don't think I think you're at the head of a lot of this. I think you're the one that tells everybody to sit down and shut up. I don't think I'll ever get the truth from you or the city attorney. Honestly, this is why I don't contact you. Those are my honest feelings.
I'm just offering it to answer your
I haven't seen the
questions.
truth come out of your mouth in years.
We can finish this at the end. I can chat with you at the end of the meeting if you'd like to. If anyone else have any comments?
I just wanted to just add a.
Careful. Yeah, careful. Yeah, sorry, I saw that coming.
Washington, if I need to.
Nope, you're good
tell
now.
that. So anyway, just on the issue of transparency, I had a problem. I've left a couple messages with the chief. I never get called back. I wanted to get a meeting with him because I wanted to get some answers on some things. And I was at the ethics committee meeting the other day and talked with the city attorney after the meeting was over. We had talked, and trying to get answers out of him is impossible too. And it just seems like there's this game that, I don't know anything, so you have to talk to him. Well, they don't know anything, so you have to talk to them. And it's like passing the buck. And I'm just wondering, maybe as an idea, communication seems to be a big problem. In a generation where you can almost speak into your wrist and talk to people, why does communication seem like such a big issue? And you brought it up with the annexation with Emmett. Because if I was one of those residents and somebody was going to drop a bomb on me for $50,000 saying that I have to get my plumbing done, I'd be pretty shocked. I mean, to me, I think that, for the last 5 years, those residents should have been sent a letter reminding them, hey, get ready, because this is coming, But it's just going back to the communication issue. It just seems like, you don't get solid answers and nobody returns phone calls and the buck gets passed. And I had talked to the city attorney and asked him about some things, and he just had no answers, which shocked me. This is the city, right? And this is what it comes down to. And I'm just going to go off a comment that you made earlier about, again, during the conversation about the annexation, that you said we have to do what's good for the city and then for the people. Well, the people are the city.
I meant the people that were not yet city residents.
Well,
So-
it just doesn't seem like there's the whole corporate picture. It seems like we have to do what we have to do, and then everybody just has to go along with. And it just seems like, and I'm not blaming you guys. I guess this should be filled every day or every meeting so that people get involved, so people know what's going on. But anyway, going back to my point, just to be short, do we ever have any town hall meetings where we can ask questions and we can get answers, or we could bring up issues, or instead of having to?
Mr. Stoller, I host one every single month. There's one tomorrow.
Where is it at?
It's on Facebook. I have no idea what time it's at. I just know it's tomorrow Wednesday. I have one tomorrow. Does someone know?
And where's it at? I mean,
I'll chat with you after. I don't want to get back and forth about it.
Because I would
can
love
chat
to
with
know
you.
it, and
I'll
I
look
know
at
a
my
lot of
calendar.
people that would like to come to
I'll
one.
look at my calendar and
So that would
after
be
the
great.
meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Do them every month.
Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else that would like to comment? All right, with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Sorry, I was raising my hand, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Jim Drinwater. I'm a resident of Watertown. I feel like there's a lot of people here, like the vocal majority here at the meetings. They don't necessarily represent the people of Watertown as a whole. I'm a general working class guy. I got to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get to work tomorrow, and it's kind of a big thing for me to attend these meetings, but if nobody comes to them, you guys don't get to hear from everybody else. So I want to talk about a couple things here. Not everybody in Watertown shares the views of the people that make it to all of these meetings. It makes sense that people who are upset about having an event like the Pride event would show up to the meetings to say, hey, we really, really don't like that. But for the people that it served, for the people that felt protected at the Pride event by the police department. They might not necessarily feel comfortable entering a room like this with people that are, you know, fairly aggressive when they talk, at least in my perspective. You know, it's kind of intimidating. It's kind of intimidating for me right now to stand up here and try and talk. So I want to talk about a couple things that I've heard tonight because I just think they're kind of ridiculous. First, I don't think there's anything egregious at the Pride Festival. I was there with my family. I didn't see anything crazy. You know, we talk about disgusting stories that were read to the children, but my 3-year-old son was right there, right in the front row, listening to 2 stories. One was about families and how all families look different. Some families have a mom and a dad. Some families, the mom and the dad aren't together. It talked about how some families have 2 parents of the same gender. It talked about how some families look like they're pets. It was a simple children's book that helps show children that each family is different so that they can help feel accepted if their families look different than the normal, you know, heteronormative, you know, same race families that most people have nowadays. You know, it's just to help our children be more accepting. Then they read a story about a crayon that was one color, you know, as the crayon and another color as the wrapper. It was a pretty clear metaphor for transgenderism, but I mean, it's not something that's going to brainwash our children. It was a silly book about a crayon. That's all it was. And it's nothing that deserves having people screaming for blood outside the fence. It's nothing that deserves having someone scream at me from 5 feet away before they were removed by the police that I'm disgusting and that I'm going to go to hell and that my family is going to face judgment. We act like there was no hatred there at the Pride Festival, but people did not get removed until they caused a scene. That's what happened. And yeah, we can talk all about the people that showed up and protested with the swastikas and they were screaming and they were loud. But I didn't see a bullhorn, and I think that's why they didn't get arrested. But the one kid, Marcus, who got arrested, did have amplification without a permit, which is part of Watertown statute. That's why he got arrested. It's really, really simple. It's black and white, and it's not something we should be fighting about at this point. We are months out from this. It's really, really simple. If you watch the videos, if you read the statutes, if you pay attention to what's going on. I think that's why there hasn't been a large-scale comment from almost anyone in the city, because it's pretty clear-cut. The LGBTQ community is a protected class. You know, people are protected based on their sexuality. It's a protected class in the United States of America. If people want to assemble under that kind of group, they are allowed to do so, just like any other group, like a religious group is allowed to assemble. And that's fine. And we talked about personal choices tonight, and I'm here to tell you, you know, this is Watertown. If you don't want to see an event like that, if you don't want to attend an event like that, then stay home. It's that simple. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to come? Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Emily?
Yes.
3 o'clock at the Collective
Oh, there you go.
tomorrow.
Beforehand, I live on East Main Street in Watertown, and I just want to say, nobody has a problem with the LGBTQ meeting in the park. We have a problem with the drag queens. Would you okay an S&M event in Riverside Park? There's certain things that's for family and public, and certain things that go behind closed doors. Everybody has a right to make their choice, but it's your responsibility to make that everybody's rights are protected by where they have things, what they have, and where they do it. You wouldn't let pole dancers down there in the middle of the day. Every other thing that goes on in Riverside Park, you don't block the roads off, you don't close the pool, you don't spend $25,000 in security. And when we've had things for our church in the park, there has been members from the LGBTQ. Some of them talked nice, some of them didn't. We didn't call and ask for help. We just, part of life. So if they want to have a picnic's fine. Nobody cares. It's the sexuality that you're imposing on people by doing it. And if you have an event in the park that takes that much money, then you should stop and think that it might not be an event you should have.
Anybody else that would like to comment? All right, with that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Who
So
was it?
moved.
I missed who that was. You all.
Mr.
Motion by-
Moldenhauer.
Motion by Mr. Moldenhauer, second by Mr. Wetzel.
Yes.
Mr. Wetzel, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.